Well, what I want to do here in this video is just set up my kitchen for you, just to give you an idea how long it takes to set up a blue sky kitchen. And I think you're going to be surprised how quickly it does set up. That, of course, is a Grubby One chuck box, which is probably my mainstay product. That's what people order the most. Um, and as you can see, it's really absolutely no trick whatsoever to get it from a stored state to a set up state. I'm sitting here looking at the lapse timer on this thing, and it probably, it's going to take about 40 seconds maybe at that. Now, that one's basically there and ready to hang utensils from and such. Then we're going to grab the worktop box and pull it over. Um, and I think what I'm trying to say here is that I want to get it underneath the tarp just in case it rains. And by the way, I'm dubbing over the audio that's actually on the tape. And that's because the wind was blowing so darn hard that you couldn't hear anything I was saying. Now what I did is I set the box so that it's just a little bit of room between the table and the box. That way if I want to get between it I can, but people aren't naturally going to try to walk through there. In other words, I'm sort of isolating my kitchen for me. Now what I'm showing you there is that there is room for a standard Coleman cook stove down inside the top of a worktop box. If you check the dimensions on these things, it's actually 22 by 14 and 3/8. So if you measure your stove, that'll tell you whether or not it'll go in there. Now the way this is designed is you have holes in the shelves, and these legs, which stored in the top of the box, you noticed, just go through those holes that are in the shelf and down into the holes in the box. And what that does is makes a very stable setup for you. It's quite solid and stable. Now, one set of the box legs has cup hooks in it, and that's the one I have in my hand right there. That's what I'm pointing to, is the cup hooks. And I try to point those to the outside of the box because the other side has shelves on it, and it would be kind of hard to get to the cup hooks. Truth be known, you could. Now your newer version, this is actually an older version of a worktop box. It's a couple years ago. I make these folding legs now differently. I make them out of 7/8 material instead of 5/8. So I drill a hole in it so that we can put dowels in them for towel racks and such. Paper towel racks, that kind of thing. So at this point we're set up, and looking at my little timer here, that took a total of about 3 minutes and maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8 seconds to set up both of those boxes. Now I'm going to speed up the box or the stove setup by a factor of 3, because that's really not my intent to show you how that all sets up. Of course, I'm going to put it underneath the tarp as well. I like to keep a set of gloves in there, and you might notice that I have actually made a box to hold my stove, and that's because I wore the cardboard box out at some moment in time, and so I needed a place to set it. And the nice thing about that is you have a place to put gloves, you have a place to put your lighter and various things that come with it. These are really pretty decent stoves. I've had this one for probably 15 years. The one thing I don't like about them is the bolts that basically attach the legs will break because they're made of cast iron. So what you have to do is find yourself some 1/4 bolts, but that's not a big deal. The stove itself will sure give you a lot of heat real fast, and I'm expecting that on this particular trip we're going to have quite a few people out. I'll need to cook a big batch of chili, etc. So that's why I brought this one. We give it a little gas, and this whole arrangement is going to be set up. So looking at my timer here, it actually took 7 minutes and 52 seconds to set up that entire kitchen, including the Camp Chef stove, which took most of the time, you noticed. So what we now have is a set up blue sky kitchen with a worktop box on this side of the kitchen. There's a Grubby One on that side of the kitchen. This particular setup uses a Camp Chef stove. If I had a standard Coleman stove, I would probably just set it up over on a Grubby One like that. But the nice thing here is that there's room enough for me, and if I needed a helper, I could get a helper in there too. So if you take a look at it, it's really situated just for the cook, is basically what it boils down to. Because you got to do things real fast. You have to go from one to the other. You want the people on the outside, any of your friends and what have you, come over and visit, and you want to be on the inside, and that way they're not in your way. Because when you cook, you got to do things real fast. Food burns quick. That's my saying. I don't care if people come over and talk to me. They can talk all they want, but I don't want them inside my kitchen. So I situate it so it's hard for them to get inside the kitchen. I get somebody that gets in here, I start doing things like this. And at some point, people begin to figure it out. That they're not supposed to be on that side, they're supposed to be on this side. Okay, there you go. How long did that take? Go camping.